Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Tori and this is Holy City Mystic. Today we are going to talk about things to expect, things to look forward to with 2025. So two things before I get started. Number one, I just want to touch a little bit on predictions for upcoming years. The reason why I don't do too many forecasts is because predicting with astrology is very similar to predicting in life. So if you know in September of next year you're going to be starting grad school, or in May of next year you're going to be finishing up a certain degree or something like that, you can have kind of a forecast in your mind of how that's going to go, how that's going to affect you and your family. That is very similar to transits coming up. You might have an idea of how it's going to go. You're not going to know exactly what's going to happen. And it's because every single house, every single sign, and every single planet has very many interpretations. So my advice when looking at the year ahead, have a general idea of knowing what's coming, but don't try to predict it down to the detail, because you're always going to be wrong. Things are always going to show up in a way that you didn't expect. It might be perfectly aligned with the astrology of the time, but you're not really able to predict it in a way where it's like foolproof, like I knew what was going to happen, all that stuff. So I just kind of want to give you a general idea of these transits, what they might look like for you, different people who they might affect more, so that you can take these things into consideration and not necessarily try to figure out your entire year and everything that's going to happen, but just come at it from a place of grace and curiosity where you know you're going to be okay. You know by the end of the year you're going to have these lessons learned, you're going to have these new projects started, this new energy in your life from these different areas. The second thing that I want to say is whenever I listen to other people doing year ahead predictions, I usually have to listen 3 or 4 times because people tend to do it chronologically. My brain does not work that way. So I am doing this video how my brain works. So I'm going to go over the retrogrades, I'm going to go over the eclipses, I'm going to go over the conjunctions and north nodes, and I'm going to go over the ingresses for 2025 all in little clumps. So if your brain doesn't work that way and you just want to know what happens each month, month by month, I'm very sorry. This is how I'm going to do it for this video. So speaking of the year ahead, 2025, I have created a moon tracking journal. It's just a PDF spreadsheet. You can print it out. You can follow it throughout the year, but it has to do with the moon changing signs each day. And in my opinion, the fastest way to get to know your chart and get to know the transiting signs is by tracking the moon for a year. I did this years ago, I still do it sometimes, and it just really helped me get in touch with my own chart. I experienced a lot of anxiety when the moon was in certain signs, and I experienced a lot of love and light and peace when it was in other signs, and it really helped me just get to the bottom of that. So it is on Etsy. You can buy the tracking guide alone. You can also purchase a class that goes deeper into it with it if you like, but that's on Etsy. I will link that below. So first I want to talk about the nodal transits. Right at the beginning of the year, the North Node is going to move into Pisces. Now, the North Node has been in Aries ever since mid-July of 2023. So January 2025, it's going to move into Pisces. And this is going to really shift the energy from what am I bringing in, what am I doing in my life, because Aries is the self. It's going to shift it more to this spiritual Piscean energy. Dreams, spirituality, connecting with the beyond, those things are going to become very important. Depending on where Pisces is in your chart, a lot of things might change and shift. I always think of the North Node as kind of like a waiter coming through. You're at a wedding or a fancy party or something like that, and a waiter comes through with a plate and it has drinks on it or food on it or something like that, and he offers it to you. This new opportunity comes through, and then you're self-reflecting. You're like, am I hungry? Do I want another drink? Do I need another drink? And so whether or not you choose to take whatever opportunity, whatever is on that plate, is really up to you, but you can't go back to a time where you didn't see it. So if you do choose to take it, that is absolutely wonderful. Go for it. You're satisfied with this new thing, this new opportunity. If you choose not to take it, that's something where you go to a space where you've done your self-reflection, you've done what you needed to do to analyze whether or not you needed that new thing coming through. And you're satisfied with the way you already are. You're satisfied with your hunger level or your thirst level. And then that waiter moves on, the North Node moves on. So wherever the North Node is transiting in your chart, wherever Pisces is in your chart, if you use whole sign, it's going to be a complete house. If you use a quadrant-based system like Porphyry, Placidus, Coke, it might still be in the same house that it was last year. So that is something to pay attention to. I will say with a lot of shifts like this, if you are a more sensitive person, you might feel the shift very deeply. And oftentimes when we do feel the shift very deeply, we tend to go through some kind of period of adjustment. So it might be a week, it might be a few weeks where you just kind of hit this slump where it's like the energy doesn't match what you're used to. You might hit kind of a blah moment, kind of a depressive moment, and that's okay. You have a reason for that. So just kind of know that. Don't necessarily go into it thinking like, oh, what is wrong with me? I can't believe that I'm like feeling so depressed. Literally nothing in my life has changed. So if this is your experience, just know that you're sensitive to the energies around you. It's perfectly fine, perfectly understandable, perfectly normal. The next thing we are going to look at is on February 7th, the North Node is going to conjoin Neptune. Now, this is a 17-year cycle, so this has not happened since 2008. Now, when the North Node meets Neptune, Neptune is spirituality. Neptune is actually the ruler of Pisces, so it's very happy where it is right now. So Neptune represents that connection to dreams, that connection to art, that connection to things that we don't have the words for. That's what Neptune is it takes your words away and moves you into a space of soul knowledge. So wherever Neptune is in your chart right now, you're probably experiencing this time of maybe confusion, not able to pinpoint something, but you have this really strong feeling of what it is because Neptune takes your words away. So when the North Node comes through and meets that, it's kind of, again, that opportunity, that fated destiny point coming through and lighting up that Neptune area of your life. Since this is only once every 17 years, it is going to feel very big. You're probably going to hear a lot of astrologers talking about it. Not everyone is going to feel it. And one of the ways that you can figure out whether or not you're going to feel it is by looking at annual perfections. So I do have a video talking about this. It's a really fast description. The next thing we are going to look at is April. Saturn is going to meet up with the North Node. Now this happens every 11 years. So the last time this happened would have been 2013. Now again, this is going to happen in Pisces. It's going to happen at 26 degrees of Pisces. So look in your chart, see what house that falls in. Different energies that are going to play out here is that idea of the North Node opportunity, meeting restriction, meeting karma, meeting your storyline that you came here to live out. So when these things do meet up, oftentimes there are a lot of changes going on around you. There's a lot of things coming to light about how your discipline or how your self-restrictions are actually either helping you reach that opportunity or holding you back from reaching that opportunity. So there is going to be a lot of self-examination here. Now, if you are having a current Saturn return in Pisces, this is going to be a really big moment for you. There is going to be destined things coming through. Things that you look back on it and you're just like, I cannot believe that that happened to me. Also, if Saturn is your current time lord for the year, when you're looking at annual perfections, or if your ascendant is in either Aquarius or Capricorn, you're going to have Saturn as your ascendant ruler, and that is also going to be something that might kick this up a notch in intensity in your own personal life. So that's it for the nodal transits. Let's go ahead and look at the retrogrades. So we'll start off with a retrograde that has already started at this point, which is Mars retrograde. Mars has moved up into Leo, and it's going to retrograde back into Cancer. For most people, this retrograde does span 2 houses. So look in your chart with whatever preference you have on house system and see what houses it is connecting in that chart. So when it does retrograde back into Cancer, it's actually going to go direct again February 24th, and then move back over all those degrees that it's already crossed at that point. Now, if you have Mars retrograde in your birth chart, this is a great time for you. This is a time where you really feel like doing a lot of things. You feel like the energy outside your body matches the energy inside your body. It's really, really great. Since Mars is the rarest of all the retrogrades, that's actually going to be a relatively small percentage of you. So when Mars is retrograde, our energy grinds to a halt. It's almost like a battery wearing out, where you don't really have the same gas, the same oomph behind you when you're doing new things or starting new projects. So I'm a big believer that we should not live our lives according to astrology in the sky. So like when the moon is void or something like that, you can't just take work off. You can't just be like, okay, I'm not going to take care of my family today. I'm not going to go to the store even though we're completely out of food. Life keeps going. But when it comes to Mars retrograde, there can be this slowing down of motivation. So oftentimes we are encouraged to not start new projects during this time because that energy is actually going internalized. That energy is going into planning mode. So keep a journal, even if it's just the notes app on your phone or a voice recorder or something like that, because you are going to be getting a lot of different ideas of how you want the next couple of years to go. But if you really want that push of energy, I'd recommend waiting until Mars is direct again. Venus retrograde is going to be the next one. That is going to last from March 2nd to April 13th. Now, when Venus goes retrograde, it goes retrograde about every 1.5 years. So still one of the more rare retrogrades that we have. When Venus goes retrograde, it takes away that feeling of receptiveness, that feeling of the universe just giving us things, and puts us back into a place of, okay, what energy am I putting in to getting what I need? It's going to retrograde from Aries, from 10 degrees of Aries back to 24 degrees of Pisces. So I don't know if you guys have been noticing, but there's a lot of energy going on in the later degrees of Pisces, with Neptune meeting the North Node, Saturn meeting the North Node, and now Venus retrograding back over these same degrees. So wherever that is in your chart, really pay attention to what's going on, because there's probably going to be a lot of action. And all of these things are very slow, rumbling action. So it might not be things happening directly on the day, but it might be the slow shift of energy that you are definitely feeling. You're definitely planning something new, something like that. Now, if Venus is your current time lord, this is going to be more significant. Also, if you have your ascendant in a Venus ruled sign, so Taurus or Libra, this is also going to feel a lot more potent than it will for other people. Now, if your personal Venus is retrograde in your chart, this is going to be a great time for luck, love, unexpected things coming through, all that stuff. So you can really sit back and enjoy this retrograde because the energy outside actually matches the energy in your body. Now, something to remember with all retrogrades, these planets cross the same degrees 3 times. So it goes forward, it stops, retrogrades back over the same degrees, and then stops and then goes forward again. And so when you see these points in your chart, know that the entire message of whatever it is you're supposed to be learning right now is not going to be revealed until after that planet is out of its shadow period. That is going to be the third and final pass, and that's usually when there's some kind of resolution on whatever came up during that time. So don't be like, oh, we're in retrograde, I have to know absolutely everything that's going to happen. You're not going to know. You're just not. So have grace for yourself. Know that it's coming. Those answers are coming. They're just not yet. Now, moving on to the Mercury retrogrades. We do have 3 this year. Now, every single time we have a retrograde in Mercury this year, it's actually going to go retrograde in a fire sign. So if you have prominent points in your chart, sun, moon, ascendant in a fire sign, there's probably going to be a lot more action for you. So the first Mercury retrograde is going to actually cross over the same degrees that Venus retrograded over. And that's going to be 9 degrees of Aries back to 26 degrees of Pisces. So again, looking at this later degrees of Pisces, there's going to be a lot of action going on. And if you are in a Pisces Saturn return year, again, this is going to be a lot of stuff going on surrounding whatever lesson that is that you are currently learning. The next one is July 18th to August 11th. This Mercury retrograde is going to be from 15 degrees of Leo back to 4 degrees of Leo. So look at where Leo is in your chart, see what kind of things you need to really fill in the gaps or pick up the pieces of things that you've dropped along the way when it comes to that house. The third and final one is going to be November 9th to November 29th, and that's going to be from 6 degrees of Sagittarius back to 20 degrees of Scorpio. So again, pay attention to those fire signs. If you have your sun, moon, or ascendant in a fire sign, you guys might really be feeling this one strongly. Also, if that Mercury retrograde happens within a house where you have the annual perfection of that year, that's also a place where you're going to feel it pretty strongly. Okay, we did the retrogrades. I'm not going to do the major planet retrogrades just because they happen every single year, so they're not going to feel as prominent as the other ones. So next thing we're going to look at is the eclipses. We have 4 major eclipses this year. The first one is a lunar eclipse on March 14th. That is going to happen at 23 degrees, 57 minutes of Virgo and Pisces. Now, with lunar eclipses, you have something releasing. Something is being removed from your life, or even a push to remove something from your life to make way for the new coming in. So one thing that's significant about this one, it's actually within a 2-degree orb of Saturn. So the sun is going to be conjoining Saturn during this eclipse. So you're going to have that Saturn energy coming through. Again, if you have your Saturn return in Pisces, next year is going to be poppin'. There is going to be so much going on for you. So the next one is going to be a solar eclipse on March 29th. Now, solar eclipses tend to bring in the new. They tend to open up an opportunity for new things to start. Now, this one is going to be at 9 degrees 0 minutes of Aries. Now, one thing that I think is really interesting about this eclipse in particular is if you are a Capricorn rising, all the planets in the sky are going to be at the top of your chart. So when you look at the horizon line, any planets that are above your chart, that are above that line, are going to have external influences. So there's going to be a lot of busyness. There's going to be a lot of things going on the outside. If you are a Cancer or Leo rising, all of the planets in the sky are going to be beneath the horizon line. So there's going to be a lot of internal lessons going on, a lot of different things you're just working through emotionally, spiritually, things like that. So that's also something to pay attention to when you look at this eclipse in your own chart. Just know that there are going to be a lot of things either happening externally if you're a Capricorn or Aquarius rising, or a lot of things happening internally if you are a Leo or a Cancer rising. The next eclipse is going to be another lunar eclipse. That's going to be September 7th. That's happening at 15 degrees of Pisces. Now, the interesting thing about this is it's actually happening at the same time as a Jupiter-Mars square. Jupiter is going to be in its sign of exaltation, which is Cancer, so it's going to be feeling really, really good. Mars, however, is going to be squaring that in a sign that it doesn't really get along with, which is Libra. And the reason why Mars doesn't really get along with Libra is because Libra is traditionally ruled by Venus. And so with this square, there might be some energy of, I want to expand, but what work, what motivation, what fire do I have to put into it to get there? And a square is a barrier. So, you're riding down the road. This is the one that I always use. You're riding down the road. There's something in the way. You can either get out of your car, move it, you can dig under it, you can climb over it, whatever it is, but it requires an action to resolve. So with a lunar eclipse, there is some kind of releasing going on that is also incorporating this Jupiter-Mars square here. that you're just going to need to self-examine for your own life and see what that looks like for you. Now, the last eclipse is going to be another solar eclipse at 29 degrees of Virgo. That's going to be on September 21st. Now, again, look at where Virgo is in your chart. Look at the house that it's in and the opportunities that it's going to be bringing in for you. Since this eclipse is on the anaretic degree with 29 degrees, it might feel a lot more potent, especially if you have a Virgo moon, ascendant, or rising. Or Virgo is the ruler for your year when it comes to annual perfections. Another thing you can actually look at for all of these transits is where your secondary progressed moon is. So if you have eclipses on your secondary progressed moon, it can actually be a really big bump in that eclipse. It can feel a lot stronger, and there can be a lot more physical manifestations out in the world and not just an internalized lesson that's being learned or that's coming up for you. So lastly, we are going to look at the ingresses. So with retrogrades, I mainly looked at the personal planets. With the ingresses, I'm mainly going to look at the outer planets because Neptune, Saturn, Jupiter, and Uranus are all going to change signs. So when these planets change signs, they tend to have a heavier hit. They tend to really change the collective energy as well as the energy within your chart pretty drastically. So the first thing we're going to look at is Neptune. Neptune is actually going to move into Aries March 30th and then move back into Pisces October 22nd. So when Neptune moves into Aries, it's moving out of its home sign, its modern rulership sign, into fire. It's moving into this place of self-motivation, self-initiation. It's making us face questions on a very spiritual level, like, who am I? How am I showing up for myself in the world? How am I making my voice heard? Now, depending on where Aries is in your chart, this is going to affect different houses. If you have a moon, sun, or ascendant in Aries, this is actually going to affect you a lot more, and there are going to be some times of confusion or not having the words to describe something, but again, it moves you into that space of ultimate clarity because you no longer need the words to describe it. You need just that embodiment, just that full body feeling that Neptune will actually give you a huge connection to once it transits through this space. So Neptune will re-enter Aries the following year, but we're not there yet. Next, we're going to look at Saturn. Saturn enters Aries May 25th and then exits again back into Pisces. We'll retrograde back into Pisces again September 1st. So this is actually going to be a really nice break and a really nice insight for everybody who is going through a Saturn return right now. This will be kind of, it's almost like you're swimming in water and you have that moment of air where you come up and you're just like, as you're going through this Saturn return, there will be that moment of clarity where it's like, okay, this is what that was about. And then when it retrogrades back into Pisces, you're just going to be wrapping things up. There's just going to be a few things, a few endings to the story that you're able to really solidify at that time. Also, if you have Saturn as a Time Lord this year, this is going to be a much more significant transit as it moves into the next sign. Now, Jupiter is going to enter Cancer on June 9th. Now, Jupiter in Cancer, Jupiter is in its exaltation in Cancer, so it is just extremely comfortable, extremely happy, a lot of Jupiterian expansive energy coming out for different things. So if you are a Sagittarius rising or Pisces rising, Jupiter is actually your ruling planet, so you're going to feel this very, very strong, and it's just going to feel like a really good time in your life. It is going to stay until July of the following year, so it's going to retrograde within the bounds of Cancer, so this will actually be the type of thing where there's no pause and enjoyment. It's just going to be something that is really, really happy. And lastly, Uranus is going to move into Gemini July 7th. Now, Uranus, wherever it is in your chart, it's literally groundbreaking. It's pulling up roots, it's tilling soil, it's bringing all these things up, and that's kind of what I'm associating with it with the past 7 years, where it's been in an earth sign because there was a lot of upheaval. There was a lot of things that were pretty set in stone, were pretty planted well, that Uranus kicked up when that happened. So as it moves into Gemini, I will encourage you to actually look at the whole sign for this, because that house is going to get a lot of external things coming through for that. as it starts transiting that new space. It is going to retrograde back into Taurus November 8th. So this is just kind of a glimpse of what those next few years are going to look like while it is in Gemini. So definitely use whatever house system you're most comfortable with, but with the slower planets, particularly Uranus and Neptune, I would encourage you to incorporate whole sign just to kind of see what that says and see how that will also affect you as you move into this next year. So my advice for this next year is to really flow with whatever is coming up. Whatever is coming up for you, acknowledge it. Don't shove it. Don't try to put it in a box. Just whatever is coming up for you, look at it, accept it. Come to the year with a spirit of curiosity. It is going to be a pretty busy year as far as transits for every single person. So when this does happen, and these things start coming to light, or changes start coming out of nowhere, or new opportunities present themselves and you're not really sure what to do, just know that you are never going to miss what is meant for you. If there's something that you really had your heart set on, but it didn't happen for whatever reason or another, know that it wasn't meant for you, or it wasn't meant for you right now, but it might be later. You didn't miss it. It's coming around again, or there's something better on the way. Also, even with these slower moving transits where you look at them and you're like, oh man, this is going to be there for the next 14 years, or this is going to be there for the next 8 years, or this next 3 years is going to look really, really chaotic for me. Nothing lasts forever. These things are going to come to an end. You are going to learn all the lessons within this time period, and you're going to be better for them. And so don't come to this with a spirit of anxiety, but come to it with a spirit of curiosity, where you are looking to see what is going to happen next. In what ways are you going to grow? What opportunities are going to present themselves? Things are going to ebb and flow. They're going to work out. They're going to not work out. But life keeps going. There's always more to the story. There's always something around the corner. So I really hope this helps. Take care. Best of luck next year. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.